Hello, I'm Coro Stramberg, and I am the principal of Stramberg Consulting. I advise companies, industry associations, and governments on how to envision and innovate a sustainable future for business and industry and society. I'm also an associate with Canadian Business for Social Responsibility. They are a network of businesses advancing corporate social responsibility, CSR, in Canada. I have worked in corporate sustainability and social responsibility field for a number of decades. I was a director of the board of Vancity Credit Union, which is the world's largest community-based credit union headquartered in Vancouver, and they're a leader now in values-based banking. I was on the board of directors of Vancity when I first heard the term corporate social responsibility in 1992. Back then, as a director, and then eventually I became chair of the board of directors, I helped Vancity during that decade become a leader in corporate social responsibility and sustainable finance. And it was with this experience that I began advising companies on sustainability and CSR leadership about a decade ago, and this is the focus of my work today. So I have watched and at times even helped shape sustainability leadership in Canada for many years. And a few years ago, I became aware that sustainability leadership was being redefined by global companies and social businesses. CBSR's members were also asking for more information on the next generation of CSR. This led to research into the qualities of this new breed of company, the transformational company qualities. In this session, you will learn about the new leadership standards in corporate responsibility and sustainability. I'm going to go over the drivers and trends. I'll walk you through the new standard. I'll review the business case. And also I'm going to share how I've been using the qualities in my CSR and sustainability work with companies and industries who want to understand the new leadership requirements. And with this information, you should be able to recognize and promote leading strategies for CSR and sustainability. You'll have a toolkit that you can use to advise businesses on how they too can become leaders in CSR and sustainability. So, as I mentioned, I noticed a few years ago that the global CSR conversation was changing. First, what I noticed is that more and more companies were beginning to take longer-term and emerging sustainability risks and thresholds into account in their business strategy. And you will see some of them reflected here on the inner and outer rings of this green donut. More and more information and data was becoming available on how society is overshooting planetary limits and undershooting social well-being around the world, with climate change and persistent and increasing poverty and income inequality being just two. Leading companies, of course, all of whom have a natural interest in securing their future success, they began to consider the impact of these global sustainability megaforces on their operations, on their supply chains, and on the well-being of their customers. Oxfam, who we know as the Global Anti-Poverty Organization, they pulled this idea together in a way that I think is quite visionary, and they call this donut economics, which is the safe and just space for humanity that operates within the environmental ceiling and the social floor. Basically, to enable 9 billion people to live well on the planet by 2050, another 2 billion people to come, this requires a rethinking of the business model, which was designed for an earlier industrial age. These company leaders who were perceiving these tectonic shifts, they began to develop business models to ensure that they would create shareholder and societal value over the long term. And in so doing, they're also responding to rising consumer demand and increasing customer expectations that companies and brands lead social change and contribute to solutions through the core business. So CBSR and I wanted to find out, what was this new business model, and what are these companies doing to ensure shareholder and societal success? So we began a research project a few years ago to understand the qualities of these transformational companies. And we took the traditional CSR continuum shown here and began to identify the best practices of companies in the transformational stage at the top right of the screen. I conducted then a global scan of about 20 leading CSR and corporate sustainability guidelines and standards that were already out there, such as that put together by Ceres, the 2020 Corporation, WBCSD, World Business Council for Sustainable Development, UN Global Compact's LEAD program, and many, many, many others. I compiled all of these into one set of draft transformational qualities, and then I consulted about 36 leading CSR thinkers, visionaries, and practitioners around the world for their advice on these emerging requirements for transformational leadership. And this resulted in 19 qualities of a transformational company, which was published in 2012. And what we found is that to future-proof their operations from inevitable resource constraints and to design and create products for a future we all want, the transformational company goes beyond CSR as usual and beyond tinkering with slow, incremental improvements to re-envisioning the role of business in society. The transformational company realizes basically that it can't become sustainable on its own. It is necessary to become transformational and work with partners along their value chain to transition whole industries and regions to sustainability. And this is the path to future success. So here is a visual to help you see how traditional CSR is evolving into transformational CSR, where the objective for traditionals is to incrementally reduce negative impacts, give back to society, whereas the transformational company is looking at something more powerful, societal value creation. The traditional company might look at operational efficiency, philanthropy, screening, products and investments for social and environmental practices and things like that. Whereas the transformational company is really working on a sustainable business model. They're engaging the whole of enterprise, not just their philanthropy group, and they're not just screening suppliers, they're fostering collaboration with suppliers on innovation. The traditional company thinks basically that business as usual growth will continue, while the transformational company says that it's not guaranteed. Traditional businesses think the external environment will stay the same, whereas transformational companies recognize that megatrends are having a powerful impact on the external environment. And equally, resources are not infinite, but are constrained. And while for many years traditional CSR companies think that their customers aren't interested in sustainability, the transformational company believes that they want better, healthier, and more efficient options, and their job is to deliver them. So if that's sort of a look back at where was CSR and then where is it going at the high level, what I'm going to turn to now is in fact giving you a profile of the qualities of the transformational company. There are 19 of these qualities, and we found that basically the transformational company acts beyond its direct operations, and beyond the foreseeable future. They invest in business models and initiatives that transform both its business and its operating context, and in ways that improve prospects for itself and society. I'm now going to briefly review the 19 qualities which make up this operating manual for the transformational company, and it's organized here as we see into the what, how, and who. These qualities, the research is available on CBSR's Transformational Company website. So here we are, jumping into what you do. These 4 qualities come under a cluster that we call sustainable and restorative products and services. And sustainable companies consider opportunities to align their overall corporate purpose with sustainability principles. Some even go further and they adopt an explicit sustainable purpose or social purpose as the core purpose of the firm. These companies look at their customer offerings holistically. They rethink their products and services from the bottom up and increase the sustainability component of all of their customer offerings to the point that they would have a fully sustainable product array. They also attempt to tackle social or, let's say, environmental problems through a profitable business model. They're solutions-oriented. They seek to make a sizable impact on major global or social environmental problems as part of their competitive strategy. And some are even experimenting with restorative business models in which they generate not just zero harms, but they go beyond zero harms to create net positive benefits for society, the environment, and the company, and in so doing become a restorative, generative company. These qualities come under this idea of engaging the value chain for sustainability. And what we found here is that transformational companies are adopting long-term, bold, multi-generational visions with goals well beyond the short-term operating outlook. They adopt and advance a sustainable governance and culture, and here, particularly, this has to do with engaging the board as stewards of the company, and where the boards become involved in providing oversight of the sustainability performance and impacts of the firm. And equally, they adopt sustainable cultures in which sustainability is integrated throughout the organization. They also have enlightened leaders, committed values-based executives who become spokesperson, not just for the company, but for progress towards sustainability overall. And then, of course, employee engagement. These companies have diverse, equitable, thriving, participatory workforces where employees become champions of sustainability at work, at home, and in the broader community. And the inclusive business, this is the most explicit social component of the qualities. Inclusive businesses expand opportunities for all populations as employees, suppliers, distributors, and customers. And the closed-loop company is that company which commits itself to closed-loop production on its use of materials and the byproducts of its production processes, and they seek to advance a closed-loop economy. Companies pursuing the resource productivity quality are looking to achieve a major, significant improvement in the use of their use of resources and materials, and become a zero-carbon company with respect to their use of energy. Value chain influence is our 12th quality, and these companies, they actually take responsibility for the sustainability impacts up and downstream of their operations. So they equally work with their suppliers, their business partners, their distributors, and their customers up and downstream to identify opportunities to improve the overall sustainability outcomes of how their products are extracted, manufactured, sold, used, and where they go at the end of their life. Very powerful transformational quality. And then number 13 here is stakeholder accountability and transparency. And this is the transformational company that is very actively engaged with and sees itself accountable to all stakeholders and takes quite a strong approach to becoming transparent in how its products and services are produced and sold and used. The next section is who you interact with, and this cluster is really to signify and reveal that transformational companies are working on collective solutions for sustainability challenges, back to this idea that they cannot become sustainable on their own. So with respect to customer engagement, they enable their customers to make informed choices in terms of the sustainability impacts. They help their customers reduce their life cycle impacts, and they support their customers to make a positive difference through education, engagement, and the provision of innovative products and business models. Industry standards is a very powerful new agenda for companies. Oftentimes, the company realizes that its whole sector actually needs to grow and evolve together in terms of sustainability for it to become sustainable. So they collaborate within their industry, including with their customers, with their competitors, and they also collaborate across sectors to encourage the whole industry, systemic industrial change, and to develop standards and guidelines and metrics and a roadmap for the whole industry to become sustainable. In the case of multi-stakeholder collaboration, of course, this is where a company would lead or join multi-party undertakings with governments, nonprofit organizations, NGOs, academics, to address and overcome systemic barriers and challenges where we all need to work together. And in terms of the finance community, they don't leave them alone. They realize that much of the finance community is focused on short-term results. The transformational company engages their shareholders, bankers, insurers, accountants, and others in the financial community on the opportunities and benefits of sustainable business models. And they engage the public. They create platforms to raise awareness of the public on issues and opportunities and the ways that the public could get involved in adopting sustainable lifestyles themselves and or becoming involved in community initiatives. And then lastly, but not least, public policy advocacy, and this is definitely a new frontier for companies, but we are seeing more and more companies become involved in the public policy debate because they know that they need government equally to transform their legislative, regulatory, and program and public policy frameworks. So they become proactive lobbyists, if you will, to support governments to move in the direction of sustainable government approaches, and thereby basically setting a level playing field for all and moving companies and industries and sectors forward together. So these are the 19 qualities of a transformational company, and they are available to you in a guide on the website at cbsr.ca. I'm just going to briefly profile the business case for why companies are proceeding in this fashion. And what we find is that the top drivers are rising societal expectations that companies and brands actively lead social change. And also, another driver is the global sustainability megaforces are going to be affecting commercial and societal success, so they come to realize that. And I've alluded to that a little bit earlier. So now we've got one up here already under the business case. Here are a range of business benefits which are available to companies pursuing a transformational path. First being, of course, the ability to attract and retain employees, to improve employee productivity, and to be seen and to be an employer of choice. These transformational companies are seeking to attract customers, improve customer loyalty, and tap into new markets as a result of the innovation that they're pursuing. They're building a positive brand and reputation with key stakeholders and basically become a partner of choice. Of course, many of them are pursuing it for cost-saving reasons. You can, with this approach, lower costs from reduced materials, waste, water, and energy use. And you can anticipate, prepare for, and possibly even influence government regulations and standards. These strategies help transformational companies improve the security of their supply chain, helps them maintain access to scarce resources, and better manage the price volatility of commodities. Naturally enough, this fuels innovation and helps them develop new products and services, helps them decrease strategic and operational and even systemic risks and enhance business continuity. And it can help them increase the availability of capital as more and more investors seek out companies with superior sustainability performance. The list goes on. It can help them improve the operating context, the business environment of the business, creating external conditions for their future success. Naturally, it can help them build competitive and first-mover advantage. And finally, and significantly, it can enhance relations with stakeholders and build the social license, not just to operate, but to grow. Well, who does it? We have on the website over 40 examples of companies who are activating on these 19 transformational company qualities. Here are some examples, and I encourage you to read these examples and share them with your peers. So now I'm just going to provide a bit of an overview of how I'm using these qualities in my work, in my professional work with companies and industry associations. So I've been working with these qualities for about 2 years now, and I must say I'm happy to have them as an advisor, even if the company I'm working with doesn't aspire to be all of these things. It helps me as a practitioner better understand where the future is going, and it puts me in a position where I can give trusted, credible advice. These standards are globally validated, and with more and more examples coming out every day across all sectors, all regions, all markets. So for me, it just gives me the confidence that I have a resource I can turn to when I'm advising companies on CSR and corporate sustainability. So you can use the qualities to understand at the least what is global best or next generation CSR practices in 19 areas. So there's these 19 qualities. So, for example, one company hired me to give them advice on the development of a stakeholder engagement plan. So I just actually went to the stakeholder engagement quality. There's maybe 4 or 5, 6 pages of, why is this important? Why is it important to have good practices? What's the business case for it? What's the imperative? Who's doing it? How do you do it? What are the steps? What are the tools? What are the tips? What are the resources? Is there further other reading I can do? And frankly, I can just strip out, as you are welcome to do, whole sections of the material and use it to advise the companies that I'm working with. Also, naturally, you could benchmark your own company against these qualities and address the gaps. Which ones of these are in place and which are not, and then that can create a bit of a roadmap for next steps. You can also use it, as I do, to consult stakeholders and conduct gap and opportunity assessments. I am now always using these qualities, maybe not every single one of them, but certainly most of them, when I consult executives, boards, and business leaders and their stakeholders on the qualities they would like their company to demonstrate, and I actually ask, would these qualities be important, or how would you want to demonstrate this in your sector with your customers, et cetera. And then, of course, you can use this for education and strategy sessions for those who want to understand what is the future of CSR. You can use it when you're designing or updating your strategy. Sometimes I'm hard to provide an overview of a CSR sustainability strategy, maybe a 3-year strategy that someone's developed. And I just sort of use this as a checklist to see where there might be some gaps. And then it's just a very easy way to kind of fine-tune or identify some gaps. Because if you're building a strategy for 3 years out and you're not building out and fleshing out some of these qualities, you'd be at risk, or the company would be at risk of falling behind. So kind of a handy checklist for that. And then lastly, and super importantly, it's a chance to work with your industry association for those of you who have those connections, and frankly, for those of you who don't, because of this imperative for whole sectors, whole supply chains, whole value chains to become sustainable in order for one company to be sustainable and in order for society to be thriving by 2050. So raises the need to work with your industry association. So that's just a little bit of outreach you might want to think about. But what I do is I share these qualities with industry associations so they can understand what the future expectations are going to be, maybe not today, but in the future for their members. And I use this to develop, sector sustainability standards where, you've probably seen these 1.0 is, everyday CSR, and then 2, 3, 4, and 4.0 is transformational CSR. And then you could fill in the blanks under those headings and use that as a benchmark or a roadmap or performance levels, perhaps for your industry association, and develop guidelines and standards along the way, as I do. So these are the various ways, and there are certainly more, but these are the various ways in which I have been using the qualities and plan to do so in the years ahead. Now, I mentioned this 1.0, 4.0, and you saw that earlier in an early slide on the continuum of CSR. Here it is again, but I wanted to reintroduce it because I find in my work now, whether it's advising a company on a strategy, talking to governments about how they can work with companies to mobilize them, industry associations and how they can accelerate sustainability in their sector, no matter where I go now, I can't help but see everything as 1.0 versus 4.0. And I invite you to think about this as well. Which of your own companies or industries or supply chain practices are in the compliance, operational, integrated, or the transformational area? And I don't think you want to be having 100% of your work in transformational. Maybe that day will come. But for now, you should be looking to see what percent of your work, of your company's business model can move into this transformational space. I think of this as a bit of a thought experiment, and that you can use this as a way of thinking about, I use this in strategy sessions with boards. Where would you like to be on this continuum? Many of them I hear say they want to be, 3.0, 4.0. If they understood it better and had a bit of a roadmap for getting there, they would want to go 3.0, 4.0. And it moves the conversation off of operational, incremental, sort of tinkering, type solutions where you might otherwise get stuck at 2.0. It becomes a breath of fresh air for a lot of sustainability practitioners who want to work there, and it's just a way of opening up the dialogue. So, lastly, just to sum it up, after 20 years or more of advising on CSR and sustainability strategies and closely monitoring trends in this area for those many years, I am pretty well certain that the transformational company quality is the new leadership bar. It builds on the top sustainability leadership standards around the world. It's informed by global CSR and sustainability experts and thought leaders. It's validated every day by more and more companies demonstrating these qualities as they realize they cannot become sustainable by working in a company silo. And it works in designing and developing sustainability and CSR strategy for organizations. Now, you don't have to be doing all these things. Some qualities are more relevant for some sectors than others. However, you must be doing most of these things to be considered a leader. Now, if I may just sum up the kinds of qualities, I think of a quick checklist, when I read a CSR report or review a sustainability strategy, here's my checklist of these 19 things. I go right away to see if these 6 or 7 principles are in practice in the organization. First, I look to see what's the purpose of the company, and do I see evidence of understanding of the social, environmental, societal purpose of the company? I go look there. Secondly, I look to see, do they have a long-term vision? Do they have bold, measurable, long-term goals and targets? Are they becoming solutions-oriented, addressing societal issues through their core business, not through simply philanthropy? And do they have a roadmap for innovating their products and services? Are they collaborating with others? Are they setting standards in their sector? Are they engaging their suppliers and or their customers and their other business partners in improving sustainability in the value chain? Is the board involved? Does the board have a mandate to steward sustainability in the organization? Is it playing an oversight role? And then lastly, is the company engaging governments? Because if it's not active in public policy for a sustainable future and promoting that kind of thinking to governments, then it is not, truly a committed company that is really seeking to be sustainable. So these are the kinds of qualities, if you wanted to know my checklist, that I use to very quickly validate where a company is on its path. And by the way, in so doing, it creates opportunities for those companies that seek to be defining, that seek to understand how they can create customer value, returns for their shareholders, while contributing to a quality of life for 9 billion people by 2050. So now there's a free how-to guide and website available to learn more about these qualities, and it's available at this link right here. I encourage you to check it out. And I hope you're now feeling better informed on what it means to be a corporate sustainability and corporate responsibility leader today. I hope you feel inspired about this shift in modest, incremental CSR practices, which will not get business and society where we need to go. And I hope you now have some ideas about next steps for advancing this visionary approach. Good luck in your transformational journey.